And I will ask staff if they want to take a quick roll call.
Mayor Devine.
Here.
Wayne Clark.
Yes.
Eric Torkelson.
Here.
Kathleen Degenhart.
Here.
Jessica Katzenmeyer.
Here.
Brian Frank.
Here.
David Roshka.
Here.
And Rossi Manka and Brandon Reinke are excused.
All right. Thank you. Then our next item will be the approval of the minutes from our meeting on June 22nd.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Torkelson and a second by Commissioner Degenhart. Any changes to the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. We will go right into D, new and previous matters, and we will take up items 2A and 2B, and I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see if we can get this going here. All right. So our first item is a conditional use permit for AS Towing and the associated site landscaping and architectural plans. So just some background on this site. AS Towing is proposing a location at 5225 West Electric Avenue. This is in the southwest corner of the city, just kind of adjacent to Greaves Bakery, which is located right here. This is a proposed light motor vehicle service use, which is a conditional use, so a common council and public hearing is required. We have that planned for September 6th. There are two current tenants in the building. One is a towing tenant, one is an auto repair tenant, and the property owner is proposing to open this combined towing auto repair business to be the third tenant on the property itself. So taking a look at the site and landscaping, there's no proposed changes. Essentially, there's in the yellow rectangle here, this is the proposed space for the auto repair, the new auto repair use. And then the other users use this part and this part of the building. Then there's some landscaping shown in green. When the application was first submitted, staff went to the site to do a review, and the landscape was in pretty poor condition. But the property owner made some upgrades after our comments and replanted, remulched the beds, so they're in good shape now. There's this small parking area here with 7 parking stalls, including 1 ADA stall. And then the different tenants use this driving kind of lane to access the different overhead doors for their repair areas. So I guess going back to when this first was applied to us, that we noticed that the site was being used in a manner that really exceeded its design capacity. The parking lot was filled with more vehicles than those 7 parking spaces. They were storing vehicles in the right-of-way. They had tow trucks that were parked in those kind of driveway areas, kind of blocking the access. Ultimately, we noticed that these were in violation of the existing conditional use permit for the current auto repair user there. And here's just some more pictures showing kind of the lines of vehicles that were on the street there, and what the parking lot looked like. The ADA stall, for example, was being blocked by multiple cars on either side of that. So from our last month's plan commission, we decided to hold the item to work further with the property owner and try to find a solution. We wanted to address the root issue, which is that overcrowding on the site. Really, while the actual building works for doing auto repair on vehicles, the site doesn't really work for doing that vehicle storage that's often associated with auto repair. So our solution that we proposed to the property owner was to try to find a different space to store vehicles. The property owner ended up finding a space in a lot in Milwaukee where they will be storing the vehicles, and they will use their tow trucks to transport them to the site for service as needed. So the property owner is this applicant, and they secured this site, and they worked with the current tenant to implement this solution, and we noticed a really great improvement in the conditions at the site. Here are some pictures, more recent pictures. We've visited it multiple times since they implemented the solution, and there's just the employee vehicles out there, not vehicles with flat tires, all stocked up. There's now even, sometimes we've gone by and there's been multiple empty spaces available, and there's no longer that kind of massive storage on the street there that was going on and could have caused a problem for the neighboring properties. So ultimately, after these changes have been implemented by the property owner, we recommend approving the site landscape and architectural plans, subject to a revised site plan that shows some of these conditions here. Stating that the number of vehicles on the site shall be equal to the number of off-street parking stalls that they have provided. stating that the overnight company tow vehicles have to be, kind of indicated on the plan, showing that to share their agreement with the other property owner for their vehicle storage lot, and then have these other kind of standard conditions that we put on all kind of auto repair uses, where all the work has to be done indoors, overhead bay doors have to be closed during service, things like that. So that's the end of this presentation for this. Any questions or comments from the commission?
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. We have a sad record with a towing company, the one that's located off of National, and I think it's around 84th, where they've taken over City Street. They've become a nuisance from my perspective, what I've seen, what I've heard from aldermen. And why do we believe, given the track record that you put forth here, this is going to be any better?
We believe that this will be better because we've seen them implement the changes already for their existing tenants, and they also have the space there. It's a tough thing because this is really more of a code enforcement type of issue than for the Plan Commission. We can and for the Plan Commission conditional use permit, we can kind of put these conditions on their approval, but it's really managing it and making sure the site is being used in the manner that they proposed it to be used in, as they are right now. So that's kind of down the line is where we'll have to continue to keep evaluating this site and making sure it works and is continuing to work.
And who is it that will enforce these 50 requirements?
So these requirements, that there are a few additional ones in here from what we normally would have, but most of them are just, we want them to show it on the site plan, what their plan is to use it. And for who's going to be enforcing it, our planning staff will be checking in on this over the coming months, and then we'll also be having our code enforcement department take a look at this property as it moves forward as well.
Mr. Mayor, even though the place on 84th and National isn't on the agenda, it's a towing operation, and my question I'd like to ask is, what are we doing about the other towing site to try to clean that up?
Steve,
right
I don't know if we
about?
are doing anything about this right now.
That's because that's not on our agenda. I don't think we can discuss that in open, like in the dialogue on this item.
All right.
Yeah, it could be, it could be something we could bring up in the future under tracking updates if we pursue it that way.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Are there any other questions on, I see Brian first and then Eric?
This is behind everything, right? I mean, it's kind of like a street that's really far off.
Yeah, so
Am I
this is on
correct in that?
Electric Avenue, so that's, if we go
It's
back.
not on a main street. It's kind of really, and it's stuck. Is it stuck behind Greeby's? Stuck. I don't know if that's the right word, but
so Greeby's faces Lincoln Avenue. This is kind of Greeby's area right here that faces Lincoln Avenue. This is obviously Lincoln here. This building fronts just Electric, which is primarily more industrial type of road, a lot of like kind of back end users and stuff. So this isn't maybe as troubling as it would be if it were in a different location. Yeah.
So okay, the one thing I do want to bring up is like Commissioner Clark said is we don't want all the traffic back on there. One of the things when I saw with the towing and the and the auto repair, I thought there's going to be a lot of cars because we kind of have an issue with that. So I just want to make sure that somebody gets, if we approve it, let's make sure it gets enforced.
Yep. Definitely.
That's it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the question I have is, as it relates to like auto repair businesses to a degree, is there an ordinance on the books that like enforces like abandoned vehicles? Because like one of the things that I think is a concern is auto repair shops becoming used car parking lots, so to speak, and you can see cars sitting out for months at a time. So that was like one concern I have, and then I guess like what the mayor had mentioned, I would be in favor of adding this to our tracking report for sure,
Okay.
and having like a follow up in the 2-3 months from now. But yeah, I guess back to the original question, is there like an ordinance that the staff is aware of?
So we don't have any, I don't think there's, there's some rules about long-term vehicle storage versus parking. And, there's nothing necessarily that, prohibits that for these, these uses, because these are conditional uses. It could be something that could be added to a conditional use permit for each of these, is that there could be some language in the conditional use permit that says, no long-term vehicle storage on the site. But with auto repair, that can be difficult sometimes because, they may have a vehicle that's there for a couple weeks or something while it's being serviced. So it's a thing that's difficult for enforcement to distinguish between what's a vehicle that's been there for months on end and what's one that's been there for a few weeks as it waits for service. So I know that's one issue we could have with that. I don't know, Steve, if you have anything else to add to that, but
yeah, we could just add it to the special use resolution. The long-term parking, long-term meaning like more than 14 days. If something's sitting there for a lengthy period of time, the city can step in and question that. In addition, if you have cars sitting there long-term, that's also going to start to, other cars coming in for work is going to start to spill over potentially into the street, and then becomes a bigger issue, so that it makes it even more apparent then that they're out of compliance with their site plan. So if those things happen, we can go as far as terminating the special use. Should it become a really big problem, it would of course be brought in for a hearing before the common council, and the council would hear the testimony of the applicant and why there's a problem, and could ultimately terminate the special use.
Thank you. Jessica?
Steve, when you talk about long-term, what's the time limit are we going to put on this so that we get something in place? That's kind of what
14 days. So if long-term meaning over 14 days. Yep.
But then again, after the 14 days, is there a limit after that to where we're like, okay, these cars need to get off this lot?
Yeah, there would be a notice and order that would be sent to the property owner, and if they don't comply, then they would be ultimately summons a complaint before municipal court, and deal with our city attorney's office, and if that doesn't solve it, then the judge.
I guess more of my question is like, how many days after the 14 days is my question.
Well, the notice and order would be sent out. I mean, if we happen to see it sitting there and notice that issue, the notice and order would be sent that day, and we could even stop in to the establishment, and it could be immediate.
Any other questions? Does anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to amend staff recommendations to add an item F so that we can add this project to our tracking report.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 1 nay and 2, 4, 6. I'll vote aye. 6 ayes. Motion carries. Next up, we will take up item 3.
Thank you, Mayor. Our second item is a site landscaping and architectural plan amendment for L&W Supply. This is an industrial property located at 1707 South 101st Street. This is zoned M1. This is right at the end of the street here. Corporate Contractors Incorporated is proposing to add a new accessory storage shed to the site. Here's their principal building, and then here's their current accessory storage shed. The proposed accessory storage shed is going to be a 3-sided structure, so it's open to the elements to the north, which faces the kind of interior of the property. The materials are proposed as kind of a corrugated metal siding, and then just kind of standard beams and such. And there's going to be some of these kind of metal railings as well for kind of safety elements to this too. There's also, if you note, it's raised slightly a little bit higher, 1 foot higher exactly, for this kind of, I guess this would be the western portion of the building, I believe. On the site plan, you can see that here's this kind of proposed location again. It'll be opening kind of towards the interior of the facility. It's located in this kind of storage yard. Because this is already in an impervious surface, there's kind of no additional stormwater management requirements. This is already kind of just replacing that paving. And this is a 5,400 square foot shed. It's kind of the same design as their existing shed. Here's a picture of the existing site conditions. As staff checked out the site after their application, we noticed there's some landscaping maintenance issues that need to be resolved before any building permits can be issued. Essentially, this kind of planting strip along the front edge of the property is supposed to be kind of clean and have several plants, kind of spaced evenly throughout it. And right now, plants are dead, plants are overgrown, so that's something that we're going to be addressing before any building permits would be issued, and that's a condition that we have recommended here. And ultimately, our staff recommendation is to approve the site landscaping and architectural plans for L&W Supply with that condition. Any questions or comments?
If there's no questions, we have a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 4.
Steve, you want to take this one?
Crystal is here, and Jim Herrig of Architects Planners, and Crystal is going to be the bar manager for the 6500 Bar and Grill. This is an existing building that was once a bar, named the same, at 65th and Greenfield Avenue. It's on the northwest corner of the intersection. Immediately across the street are the 6 Point Apartments and also the Berkshire's kitty corner. Just to the north is a former motor casting site, which is actually being demolished right now. A portion of that foundry area is being demolished. Just sort of the surrounding context. Also, Cousin Subs immediately west. A few more pictures just moving around the building. You can see that the building was updated in 2007 with some new siding, brick wainscoting along the bottom front of the building, some new signage and lighting. There's also an outdoor patio area on the west side of the building between the Cousins parking lot and the bar. And in the back side of the building, there's a 4-car detached garage. And just further around the building, the property is fully served by sidewalks around the building. And there are also connections into the property from those walkways and from the garage. So this is the general location, looking at it from an aerial view. And then the big changes to this building, not only are we going to have a new bar come back online, bar and grill for this site, but there are some interior and exterior renovations that we'll get into in a little bit here. But this is the site plan that's been submitted by Architects Planners. The most significant change is going to be that demolition of certain attributes on this building. On the rear portion of the building, there's an existing area portion of the building that's going to be demolished, and then a new stair addition is going to be added. And that's an enclosed stairway addition that's going to be added on the north side of the building. And just a closer view of that, a new porch and platform will be added here with a new staircase leading up to a platform and then into the building, which will get you into the main level as well as the level above. And then on the west side of the building, there's an existing staircase that'll be removed. It's a metal staircase that'll be removed from the building. The holes will be boarded and sided for a seamless look with a matching type of siding material. And then a new ramp and staircase will be added on that west side. This is just the view of what we were talking about. So this is on the existing building, north elevation, and this portion of the building is going to be demolished, and then that new staircase addition will actually be added back here, and there'll be a new set of steps up to the new staircase addition. And then on the west side of the building, looking at it from kind of the Cousin Subs area, this metal staircase will be removed. This doorway will then be filled in and resided, and then a new doorway will be added here, and that'll provide service in and out, from the bar area and seating area outside to the outdoor patio area. and then this other door here will be closed on the back side of the building. So those are just some of the general changes around the outside of the building. And when we look at the architectural elevations that Jim, the architect, had provided, everything in sort of the goldish color is being added, and then the red areas are being removed. I guess I didn't color this little dashed outline of the that one portion of the building is going to be removed back here, but we showed that in that bird's eye image. So this is the new stairway addition on the back side of the building. It will feature 2 new windows on the rear of the building. And then just wrapping around to the west elevation, the red area here being infilled, that door and window being removed. And then a new, I'm sorry, the door is being removed, but a window being added. And then also on the west side, a new ramp replacing this metal staircase, and then access into the bar and seating area inside. The north elevation facing Greenfield Avenue and the east elevation facing 65th Street, really no significant changes there, other than on the east elevation, you'll be able to see the new, I guess, addition if you're far enough back on 65th Street looking west. But that's what will replace what's currently there. So just a floor plan view. This is the first floor on the right. The main entrance, indicated by this blue arrow here in and out of the building. There'll be 12 seats for the bar, at the bar. And then aside from that, there's another 58 table seats within the grill or restaurant portion of the building. So this is a tavern, but it does have a grill. The intent is to serve some pub burgers and chicken tenders and type of pub fare within the building. It does have a kitchen, and that will be again renovated for service to customers. The updates will also include ADA bathrooms. We mentioned the staircase addition back here, and on the second floor, this particular version of the plan shows an open office concept. It could be co-work space, or it could be a dedicated office for a business with a reception lobby area entering from that staircase on the backside, conference rooms, updated bathrooms, office area, and then an open concept office area around that. Or what I don't have to show, but is entirely possible, if the office option doesn't come through, and if the owner wants to pursue it, they could also do an apartment, they're looking at doing a single apartment upstairs. It could be for a staff person, it could be rented out to the market. But in our recommendation tonight, and it wasn't covered in the staff report, but I just learned this evening that, and Jim could probably elaborate if need be, but we'd like to give the applicant the option to pursue either the office option or the apartment option with this proposal. Either way, it's considered a permitted use under our zoning code, and we'd really just be looking at any changes. I mean, with the apartment, I guess the question would be, will there be any changes to the second floor windows, or given bedroom locations and so on? But that could certainly either come back to the Plan Commission at a future date, or if Plan Commission would be willing to give us the authority to approve those types of minor changes at staff level, that would be fine too. We can approach that in either direction. But the important thing would be to note that staff is in favor of either an apartment on the second floor or the office option. On the back side of the property is a 4-car garage, and the upper part is just the existing configuration of that with a flat roof and parapet walls. And we are recommending approval. The conditions of first and foremost, for this establishment to serve alcohol, they'll need a liquor license. Those are in short supply, so it's important that that be applied for. That will go before the Common Council License and Health Committee, and they will review the operations, the hours, and needs, whether it be for outdoor dining and extension of premise and other details of the licensing. But in terms of revised plans, what we'd like to see is to show the extent and the details of the outdoor patio area on the west side of the building, the type of furniture layout, the extent of that, if it's going to be the entire length of the property, that grass area that's out there. The plans do show that area being paved with concrete, so I guess it's the intent seems to be that it's going to be that overall area for an outdoor area. The application project description also indicates a fire pit and some seating out there, but I guess we just want to see that a little more tangible look on the plan so we can see the actual layout on the plans itself, number of tables and capacity. Also, the plans show a decorative entrance canopy over the southeast entry door. I don't know if it's just a little artistic freedom there, but I mean, it's, I guess we just want to know, I mean, right now there's just a canvas awning over the entry door, and I guess that doesn't feature the details shown on the plans, so maybe just tighten that up a bit on the plans. And then third, if there's any maintenance and repairs are going to be needed, not necessarily to the garage that I could tell, but on the refuse area is more or less a two-sided walled area, and then the third side is a 4-foot fence, which is actually Cousins fence. So with the occupancy of this tavern, we'd like to see a fully functioning and enclosed refuse area that's large enough to accommodate as many dumpsters as they need to run their business. So that refuse area that's on the west side of the garage right now will have to be brought up to speed, and there'll probably be some improvements needed there. Aside from that, a signage and lighting plan being submitted, and the last is just an engineering standard that our engineering department looks at for compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I just had one question or comment before we go to the rest of the commission, but and is this going to be like a restaurant bar or a bar restaurant? I'm assuming you've got some experience in this. You're not just going into this on your own. Okay.
Please speak up.
Oh, yeah, you can come up to the microphone. I didn't mean to throw you on the spot here, but hit the button with the little person.
We do not want to be considered a bar at all. We just want to be a grill that serves liquor.
Okay.
Or have liquor as an option.
And I just wanted to let you know that some of the prior operators there have ruffled feathers in the neighborhood with parking issues and bottles and garbage left on people walking to their cars. So I'm hoping that you're cognizant of that, and it's happy to see somebody going into that building. And then I realize we're talking more about the exterior, so I don't know if there's a plan for any kind of cameras to watch who's coming and going, or lighting that would be effective but not intrusive on the neighborhood.
We have a full safety plan that'll be submitted during the licensing hearing.
Okay, and I'm sure it'll come up there, but I just wanted to just mention it here while we're all here. Thank you. Yeah. Jim?
I just wanted to respond to the item in the paragraph about the front entry. There was nothing on the plans that suggested we were going to change the entry.
Okay, I guess I'm just looking at the whatever. It looks like there's a little bit more ornamentation on the front of the building than currently exists. But that was if that's not the case, that's fine. It's noted.
Yeah, that little curved thing on top of the door was never put on there, but the canopy is still there. And that's all that's there. So based on your pictures, that's going to stay that way.
Got it.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Wayne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sir James, welcome back. We've missed seeing you for years, but good to see you tonight. What is your role in all of this? Are you the owner?
I am the architect.
You're the architect?
Yeah. She's going to be the tenant.
Yes.
And the owner is
not here.
Well, we've been working with the owner, but he's going to lease it to Crystal, and we don't know what's going to happen on the second floor yet, so we don't know who's going to take that space.
All right.
But it's what's his name? Morris.
He's an absentee owner, is that right?
Well, he's in the local area. He does construction and house flipping, and he currently owns the property. So he's going to lease it to Crystal to run the downstairs. And we'll have to see what happens, who he gets to rent out the upstairs. He'll be a landlord.
Has he been in the bar business, the restaurant business before?
Apparently, yes, but I don't, I'm not familiar with any of his other things other than projects that he works on, like flipping houses and stuff, as a carpenter contractor.
Okay.
Don't have any more information.
And Crystal, again, you're going to be the manager?
Yes, I'll be the tenant, so I'll be running the establishment.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion from the commission?
I'd like to move approval with the various items that Steve put forth.
Staff report. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Best wishes, Crystal.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on to item 5.
Thanks, Mayor. This is Crawdaddy's. Troy Myers here on behalf of Crawdaddy's. Troy's the owner,
Good.
operator.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, this strikes me as a very creative sign. Fits nicely with many of the signs that we have added to our city. Whoever's leading the creative sign initiative deserves lots of applause. I'd just like to move approval.
Second.
All right. There's a motion. There's a second. Any discussion?
May I just add one thing? I just wanted to update condition number 2, a modified condition 2. In the staff report that you all have before you, it was indicated a floor plan and cross-section, but down below is the amended recommendation. It's just a little bit more detailed. We don't need a floor plan. All we need is a plan of the wall, and where each anchor, the wall, or the sign's going to be anchored to the wall on a board, and building inspection wanted more detail on where those anchor points were, and specifically what type of masonry it was going to be going into. So if you would just modify the recommendation to as amended here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion then on the motion? Hearing.
Question, would that require a new motion then?
No, I'm assuming it's just accepted. Yeah. It's one of the best we've had tonight.
Probably the quickest.
If there's no other discussion, then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay. Thanks, Troy. Item 6.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Item 6 is another sign plan appeal for Two Brothers-in-Law Vintage. This is a business located at 7332 West Beecher Street. It's an existing vintage resale store. They are permitted 2 wall signs up to 43 square feet. They're proposing 2 wall signs up that are 27 square feet total. The reason for the appeal is that the signage is painted directly under the facade, and so due to our current sign ordinance, staff may not administratively approve painted signs onto the wall. So we believe this qualifies as a creative sign. As it improves the aesthetics. It's a kind of a clean, unique look for the storefront. It complements the existing black trim with the color that they used, and it's scaled well and uses a clean, modern font to a positive effect that enhances the property and the business storefront. So ultimately, staff recommends approval of this sign plan appeal as well.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second and a question from Eric.
I just got a
Then
question.
Brian. Eric first.
Yeah, Steve and Zach. Now, on the building, is that painted brick?
Yes.
Yeah. So the question I have is, like, in the past, as in Plan Commission, it seems like we discourage painted brick. So, I guess first of all, is that kind of correct? And then, really, kind of going forward, is there any guidance, like, for Plan Commission on, like, painted brick? Because I think it's kind of discouraged, but I know we've kind of taken it on a case by case.
Yeah, no, you're correct then that we typically do discourage painted brick. However, this is a building that it has been painted brick for a significant amount of time. It was kind of already painted brick before coming to our meeting today. So, you know, in this case, it's kind of a different situation in that, you know, when we have buildings that have brick, you know, that is unpainted, we prefer them to remain unpainted. But when there's, you know, buildings that have, you know, painted brick already and there's a change to the painting, that's something that we know we're generally acceptable of. Okay. Yep.
My question is a year, 2 years from now, it looks not so good. What do we do then?
At that point, it would be up to our, you know, code enforcement team to ensure that it's, you know, in accordance with this sign plan. So if there's, you know, fading and if there's, you know, parts of it may have chipped off or something, then it no longer would be in accordance with the sign plan. So we'd be able to, you know, enforce that way. We haven't, you know, a lot of the painted signs though too kind of have that ghost sign effect where over time they kind of age into the building, and sometimes people would say like a pleasing way. So if, you know, that's kind of, you know, there's some, you know, painted wall signs that, you know, people tend to kind of like as they get older as well. So
We think the business will take care of it.
yeah, they're pretty on top of things, business as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Then we'll move on to item 7.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So item 7 is an ordinance to amend our official West Dallas zoning map for certain properties along West Beecher Street in alignment with our comprehensive plan. So this is part of our broader effort to eliminate split zoning across the city when properties have multiple zoning districts over their one property. That can cause a lot of confusion about which set of regulations applies to that property, and we want to clean things up and simplify them for the business owners and, you know, and the property owners and for the city as well. So this proposal for West Beecher Street is to rezone 95 properties along this corridor from 67th Street to 85th Street. 59 of these would be changing into solely the RB zoning district. Typically, those properties were split zoned RB and C2. We also have several properties, 35 of them, typically along the Beecher Street corridor, like actually along the street itself. They're going to just C2. And then we have one property, a former school or a current school, that is, we're proposing to be moved into the RC zoning district, which would allow for more redevelopment options as that, you know, if something were to change with that school in the future, and does allow for schools presently. We held a public information meeting in which we had several people from whose properties were affected by this come to the meeting to see, you know, exactly if there's any issues or anything. And we received no objections. We did have one property that had kind of a unique kind of situation in that it had previously been like a home and dental office, and it's zoned C2 commercial, and now is just being used as a residence. And that person had some kind of concerns about, you know, really with more of our code enforcement team about how to manage their property moving forward. So we struck them from this proposal to deal with them separately. They weren't actually split zoned; they were just simply zoned C2 before. So we were okay with removing them from the proposal for the time being. So ultimately, though, we have no objections, you know, from any of the property owners for these changes. Any questions or comments from the Plan Commission?
Hearing none, do we need to approve this, or is this just an informational?
This would be to recommend approval to the common. This would be at a common council public hearing on August 2nd. Yeah. That's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Yep.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 8.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is similarly another batch of rezonings for the National Avenue corridor in a similar manner as the previous one, in alignment with our comprehensive plan, and the goal again is to eliminate split zoning along the corridor. So this proposal includes 91 properties. There's 55 would be becoming solely RB, 14 would be moving to the C3 district. You know, those ones again were typically split zoned RB and C3. We have 11 that we're proposing to move into C2. Those would typically have been zoned C2 and RB before. And then we have 8 that we're proposing moving into the RC zoning district. Again, we had a public information meeting. This was held at the same time as that of the West Beecher Street. We had several property owners come to that meeting as well, and there's no objections. We did have a call from one of the property owners that they're a landlord for a rental property that's currently zoned RA3 and it's being moved into the RB district, and they supported the change. They thought it would give them more opportunities for their property to add amenities like a larger garage, because there's a little bit more lot area coverage you can do in RB. So we received no objections, and at least one. Actually, there's another one from a commercial property who was in support of the rezoning as well. So two supports and 0 objections. Any questions or comments?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Then we can move on to item 9, Design Review Guidelines.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an update on something that we shared with you, I believe, at our last Plan Commission meeting. The staff is considering different options for creating design review guidelines the goal of which would be to help the Plan Commission, help the applicants really state what we're looking for in a clearer manner, so it's easier for prospective applicants to kind of navigate our process and know what to expect, and also to kind of give us more leverage to improve site plans and landscaping and architectural plans when they come to us. So one of the first steps we had with this is we wanted to get input from the community. So we released a survey which opened on June 9th. This was distributed through a variety of online platforms like our weekly updates and through social media and through a news flash on the website. We had a really great response rate. Actually, we had 480 responses. Most of those were West Allis residents, a few different just property owners or business owners as well. We saw a really pretty good spread across all the romantic districts, although we did have a little bit less from like District 5 and District 2. We had a lot from our 3rd and 4th districts. We did notice also that with the age of the property of the respondents, we only had one that was 19 or younger. We think generally this kind of the cities, I guess our social media tools and stuff are really targeted a little bit more towards an older audience and towards people who maybe property owners or business owners in the community. So we had mostly respondents that were 40 to 59 years old. So the first part of the survey was a visual preference in which the survey respondents were offered a choice of multiple different images, and they were asked to choose which one was their preferred image. For this first one, we asked about streetscaping. The highest rated image was shown on the left. 90% of respondents chose this as their preferred streetscape. This is a picture from the 3rd Ward in Milwaukee, which is kind of characterized by wide sidewalks with planting beds, decorative signposts, some street trees, and kind of buildings that are kind of close to that street frontage, and some active uses there. There's some outdoor dining and such. The lowest rated picture was, I think, from somewhere north of Milwaukee County. It's just kind of a wider, expansive, kind of more kind of rural type of road with the businesses pretty far off from the streets, things like that. So kind of confirming some of the things we saw from our older zoning code update kind of survey and visual preference responses as well. Second was for storefronts. Kegels Inn was voted as the highest rated. 50% of respondents preferred this over other storefronts. And this one, characterized by kind of, again, active outdoor dining uses, unique kind of buildings. And then our lowest rated one was the Walgreens at 84th in Greenfield, I believe. Some visual preference for multi-unit housing buildings. The highest rated was the image shown on the left, with 42% of respondents choosing this image versus the lowest rated on the right, just 13%. So kind of, this one has the one on the left has kind of, that kind of courtyard feature, has different balconies and kind of a more interestingly composed facade than maybe the one on the right has. We also asked about fencing. The kind of decorative metal fencing was the highest rated image. 46% of respondents chose that one, where the basic chain link fencing was pretty lowly rated. Only 1% of respondents chose that. One of the key questions we asked was what survey respondents' favorite building, property, or area in West Dallas is. We had a lot of people were talking about Beecher Street in our downtown. There's over 50% of our respondents who answered that question chose one of those areas or a business or building in those areas as their favorite in the city. The most common reasons that were then cited for that were the active outdoor uses, the kind of walkable nature of the area, the variety of different uses in the area. People like to have different types of things to do close by. One commonly cited thing was a mix of historic and new designs, kind of mixing the old and new in a close area. And then people also commented on some of the natural features, and that wasn't always of these areas, but was a lot of the places people like to see had prominent natural features. Some quotes. One person said that they liked that buildings were close to the street, the outdoor seating, and overhead doors that opened to the street. Another person said that they like the walkable area with mixed development, historic buildings, shops, and restaurants. The two most frequently mentioned properties were definitely the Cheese and Sausage Shop and Station Number 6 in Beecher Street. Those were popular ones. For the building, property, or area that has a poor design, the area that was most commonly cited was Highway 100. The most common reasons that we observed and their reasons for this were the kind of lack of density, the street design that doesn't typically accommodate for other than just vehicles, the large parking lots, the kind of lack of walking access, and then when there's kind of more rundown properties, those were common themes. For another property that was commonly people said had poor design was the West, primarily because people don't like the color yellow. Some people also mentioned the boxy shape. So some next steps. First, staff completed a first draft of the design guidelines, and we're kind of circulating this internally. We would want to share a kind of a more complete draft with you at probably our next plan commission meeting. The kind of building blocks of this set of design guidelines would be, as you can see on the right. So there's kind of three overarching themes. One, looking at the context. Second, looking at the how a property impacts the public realm. And then third, at the quality. And so within each of those, then there's there's these kind of overall goals of our design guidelines. Then there would be the more specific objectives. So within the context, one of the objectives would be to contribute to a sense of place in the whole area that the building is in. Second would be to create kind of positive relationships with those neighboring properties, making sure there's good connections, things like that. And then third is having good site context, so integrating the site's features into its design. For the public realm, some of those objectives would be having an active ground floor, designing our buildings so that they're accessible by people at that ground floor and open to the public. Building for people, so giving space, as we saw in a lot of those survey responses, people loved having the active outdoor uses, things for people to do kind of in the area, maybe between the building and the street. Making sure buildings are providing those kinds of amenities for people. And then also third, mitigating the impact of some of their building and parking services. So that might mean, locating utility boxes or parking at the rear of the property instead of in front of it, between that and the street. And then for quality, some of those objectives would be for designing quality materials for the building, and then designing to protect the natural features of the site. So under each of those objectives, there would be a set of specific criteria that should be met. And that's something we want to get into more depth at probably the next Plan Commission meeting. Here's an example of what the design guideline could look like with one of our fully built out guidelines. There would be a brief background about that kind of overall objective. There'd be then the specific list of guidelines, and then we'd have some example images that show really good examples from our own community, from projects in West Dallas that do certain things well. And we'd also like to include some of the quotes from the survey to kind of show what people in the community are thinking about these types of guidelines as well. I guess going to within those next steps are one thing we would like to add before we probably bring this to you is to have a kind of a final page with a more built out set of design standards, like technical standards. There's some things that we may want to have a little more leverage with things like, maybe the proportion of a building that has windows or something like that. So we're kind of working internally to kind of build that out right now before we would bring the full draft to you. But we did share the preliminary draft with you in the link to our Plan Commission agenda items. So that's something, if you feel free to take a look at that. And if you have any questions or comments for us, feel free to email us, and that we would love some feedback on that too. But we'd like to definitely get into this more probably at our next Planning Commission. Steve, do you have anything?
I was just going to say, we want it to be useful for you when you're reviewing plans or taking a look at like any of these items that we routinely go through. We want it to be a useful document, something that makes sense. So if we miss the mark, let us know. We can correct it.
Any questions or comments from the Plan Commission?
Thanks, Zach. Any questions? All right. Great. And we'll go on to the last item, number 10.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. So just some brief project updates from some old 2021 Plan Commission items. Makers Row Phase 1, the building permit was approved, so work on that should be starting in the coming weeks. St. Paul's Playground, the demolition was completed of there's three detached homes that the church had owned and was demolishing to kind of create space for that playground. From some of our items from this year, Taco John's on Greenfield Avenue, that building permit was approved, and then work should be commencing shortly. Domino's on National Avenue, that one also, the building permit was approved, and they're working on they're getting close to getting their occupancy as well. That building is, that's just more kind of interior alterations for the most part, so that one should be open a little bit sooner. And then the rezoning for the church turned, I guess it was the Maple Grove Treatment Center. I was forgetting the name. Thanks, Steve. That rezoning was approved by the Common Council at their previous meeting as well. And so that concludes the tracking updates. Yep.
One other item, just a current event. At the last Planning Commission meeting, we had approved a plan for Taqueria El Toro at 8322 Lincoln Avenue for a sign within the vision angle. And the sign was supposed to be placed on a distinct angle. Well, they went ahead and started constructing the sign at the wrong angle. So it represented an obstruction and a difference from the plan. So we did stop out there, and the work was stopped on the construction of the sign base. They are removing it and adjusting it per the plan that was approved by Planning Commission. So just one last update.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I have a question.
Yep.
I saw that Brown's Powerhouse was before the Board of Appeals pretty recently. I'm kind of curious on the updates with that, and then if there was any updates on the Dollar General store on 76 National.
Yes, so the Dollar General, that was denied, and the Brown's Powerhouse was also denied. Yep. One thing with Brown's Powerhouse, I think him or the owner was there was a kind of a fair amount of discussion on that one at the Board of Appeals meeting, and ultimately the Board of Appeals recommended that that it wasn't really within their power to overturn that decision or to allow something that would violate the codes like that. But they did recommend that the owner work with potentially with all their people to change, to work on potentially changing an ordinance like that to allow for some different types of lighting. So that was something that was discussed in some detail at that meeting.
On the Dollar General, so Planning Commission denied their request, and they do have the opportunity, if they wish, to appeal it to the Common Council. They haven't done that yet, so I mean, we are going to proceed with notice in order to remove the siding in the meantime, and they may, after getting that, they may come back and appeal it to the council, but then the council will have the final decision then on that matter.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I was under the impression that they were going to probably appeal that decision, and I was just kind of surprised we haven't heard anything yet, and I drive by that probably 4 or 5 times a week, and it just does not look good.
Right.
Personal opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, just a question or discussion point for Steve and Zach. I believe, Plan Commission, we approved a site and landscape plan on 92nd and Greenfield. I think it was, I believe, for like, it was like an old church school for like some, I think, apartments. Do you have like any update as like the status of that project?
Yeah, so that project, that was, I believe, from last fall.
We just have concepts on it. It hasn't actually come. It hasn't actually come to the Planning Commission yet. So we did get plans last year, but I think they were just conceptual in nature. The owner of the property, Cardinal Capital, is looking at hiring a demolition contractor to actually tear down the church and the buildings. That'll be the next step. So that'll likely come before the Plan Commission soon. And with that demolition plan would then, either with those demolition plans or shortly thereafter, we would get the redevelopment plan for their proposal, which was conceptually shown, I think, last year. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Anything else? And we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning? Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.